Before we begin, I need you to understand something. These stories come from real people in real small towns, Saccharis, America. I've changed names and exact locations, but everything else that happened went to dosimethying to small towns. The isolation, the darkness that comes at 4 p.m., the way snow muffles sound until you until if that noise is 10 feet away or right behind you. I collected these stories over the past 5 years. Some people wanted to share what happened to them. Others needed to warn someone. Anyone, keep your lights on for this one. I drove snowplows for the county in northern Michigan for 11 years. You see a lot on those overnight shifts, dear. Drunk drivers. The occasional weird thing you convince yourself was just shadows and exhaustion. But what I saw on February 14th, 2019, I can't explain away. It was 2:47 a.m. I was clearing Route 43, the stretch between Pinewood and Harper's Mill. Population signs, 4 both towns read under 800. That night, with the blizzard, I hadn't seen another vehicle in 3 hours. Just me, my plow, and walls of snow on either side of the road. That's when I saw the woman standing in the middle of the highway. I slammed the brakes, the plow fishtailed, and I barely stopped 20 feet from her. She just stood there in mild lights, wearing a summer dress, no coat, no shoes. Her feet were bare on the snow-covered asphalt. I grabbed my radio. Dispatch. I got a possible 10 to 55 on Route 43, mile marker 16. Female, looks hypothermic, Sin County Rescue. Static. I tried again. Nothing. The radio was dead, even though it had been working fine 2 minutes ago. The woman hadn't moved. Hadn't even blinked against my high beams. I could see my breath fogging inside. Thug of a heat was running full blast. But suddenly, I was freezing. I climbed down from the truck. The wind hit me like a wall of ice. "Ma'am, are you okay? Ma'am." She tilted her head. Slowly, too slowly, like something was wrong with her neck. Then she smiled. Her teeth were black. Not rotten black like charcoal, and her eyes had no white parts, just solid black orbs that reflected my headlights like an animal's. "Thank you for stopping," she said. Her voice sounded wrong, like two voices speaking at once, slightly out off sync with each other. I backed toward my truck. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost couldn't grip the door handle. "I've been waiting for someone to stop," she continued, taking a step forward. Her bare foot left no print in the snow. "It gets so cold, standing here every night, waiting, stay back." My voice cracked. She took another step, then another, gliding more than walking. I yanked the door open and hauled myself up into the cab. The engine was still running. I threw it in reverse. In my rear view mirror, I watched her stand there for a moment. Then she walked to the side of the road and vanished into the tree line. I didn't stop driving backward until I hit mile marker 19. Then I turned around and took the long way around, adding 40 minutes to my route. I didn't care. When I got back to the depot at 6 a.m., I filed a report. My supervisor pulled me aside. "Route 43, mile marker 16, he asked, his face pale. I nodded. He pulled out an old filing cabinet and handed me a folder. Inside were incident reports going back to 1982.7 different snowplow drivers, all reporting the same woman. Same summer dress, same black eyes. "What is she?" I asked. He shook his head. "We don't know, but nobody drives Route 43 alone anymore. That's why you're buying grass egged. I quit 2 weeks later. Now I install home security systems. I work days. I never work in winter. But sometimes, when I'm driving at night and I see a woman on the side of the road, I don't stop. I don't even slow down. I just keep driving and try not to look in my rearview mirror. My youth group met every Wednesday night in the basement of Grace Methodist Church in a town called Millbrook, Vermont. Population 623. This happened in January 2021, when I was 16. Our youth pastor, Mike, was running late that night. He texted the group chat at 6:47 p.m., stuck in snow on Maple Street. Start without me. Key under the mat. There were 6 of us. Me, Sarah, Josh, Emma, Tyler, and Connor. We'd been meeting in that basement every week for 3 years. We knew it better than our own homes. We let ourselves in through the side entrance. The church was empty. Wednesday night services had been canceled due to the snowstorm. Our footsteps echoed as we made our way down the narrow staircase to the bed. The lights flickered when Sarah hit the switch. Old wiring, we figured. The church had been built in 1887. We settled into our usual spots on the worn couches and folding chairs. The basement was one long room with concrete walls, fluorescent lights, and a small storage area in the back behind a door. Should we wait for Mike? Emma asked. Tyler shrugged. He said, start without him. Let's just do the icebreaker game. That's when we heard it. A scraping sound from the storage room. We all went silent. The sound came again, like something heavy being dragged across the floor. Probably just the pipes, Josh said, but his voice was uncertain. Connor stood up. I'll check. Don't, Sarah said quickly. Let's just wait for Mike. But Connor was already walking toward the storage room door. I'd never seen it closed before. It was alloy propped open with a rubber doorstop. Now it was shut tight. He reached for the handle. Connor, seriously, don't, I said. Something felt wrong. The air in the basement had grown colder. I could see me breath. He turned the handle. The door opened about 6 inches before something slammed it shut from the inside. The bang was so loud, Will jumped. Connor stumbled backward. What the hell? Tyler whispered. We heard footsteps from inside the storage room. Heavy, deliberate, walking toward the door. We all stood up. Sarah grabbed my arm. The footsteps stopped right at the door. We watched in horror as the handle slowly turned from the inside. We need to leave, Emma said. Now. We ran for the stairs. Behind us, the storage room door swung open with a long, drawn-out creak. I made the mistake of looking back. There was nothing there. Just an open door and darkness beyond. But I could feel something watching us. From that darkness, something that had been waiting down there for a very long time. We burst through the side door into the parking lot. The snow was coming down harder now. We didn't stop running until we reached Josh's car. Mike pulled up 5 minutes later. He found us sitting in Josh's car, with the engine running and all the doors. Guys, what happened? We tried to explain. He listened, his expression growing more concerned, then walked back to the church. We watched him go down the stairs through the window. He came back up 2 minutes later, pale and shaking. The storage room, he said. There is no storage room. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I mean the back wall is solid concrete. There's no door. There's never been a door. We went back down with him. He was right. The back wall was unbroken concrete, painted the semi-institutional beige as the rest of the basement. No door, no storage room, just wall. But I could see the scuff marks on the floor where Connor had backed away from something. We all could. The church council held an emergency meeting the next day. They brought in a contractor to examine the basement. He found something behind that back wall, a bricked-up doorway, probably from the 1920s. Behind it was a small room, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. They found a journal in that room. I never got to read it, but Mike told me later what it said. Back in 1923, the youth minister had locked a troubled teenager in that room as punishment during a winter storm. The kid died of hypothermia. The minister bricked up the room and never told anyone. The church was deconsecrated and sold last year. They're turning it into apartments. I wonder if the new tenants will hear footsteps in the basement. I wonder if they'll see a door that shouldn't exist. I was 19, driving from Boston to my parents' place in rural New Hampshire for Christmas break. This was December 2018. I left late around 9 p.m. because I'd had a final exam that afternoon. By 11:30 p.m., I was somewhere on Route 9, and my gas light came on. I hadn't seen a station in 30 miles. The snow was getting heavier, the kind where your wipers can barely keep up. Then I saw a gas station appearing out of the white, an old-style place, just 2 pumps under a rusted awning. A small building with yellowed windows. But the lights were on, and that's all that mattered. I pulled up to the pump. No other cars. The station looked like something from the 1960s analog pumps. No credit card readers. The sign above just said gas in faded red letters. I got out and tried the pump. It worked, surprisingly. The numbers ticked up on the mechanical dial as gas flowed into my tank. I kept glancing at the building. Through the foggy windows, I could see someone moving ground inside. When the tank was full, I headed in to pay. A bell above the door jingled. The clerk was an old man, maybe 70, wearing a flannel shirt and a name tag that said Earl. He was reading a newspaper at the counter. $28, he said without looking up. I pulled out my debit card. He shook his head. Cash only. Of course, I dug through my wallet and found $30. He gave me my change, still not making eye contact. That's when I noticed a calendar on the wall behind him. December 1987. Your calendar's a little out of date, I said, trying to make conversation. Earl finally looked at me. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused. Is it? He said quietly. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter cold. The newspaper he was reading, I could see the Detano, December 18th, 1987. Sir, what year do you think it is? He smiled, but it was sad. Distant. Does it matter? You needed gas. I'm still here. That's all that matters. I backed toward the door. I should go. Thank you. Drive safe, he said. Roads are dangerous this time of year. Lots of accidents on Route 9. I practically ran to my car. As I drove away, I looked in my rearview mirror. The gas station was gone. Just empty snow-covered ground and trees. When I got to my parents' house, I told them what happened. My dad went pale. Route 9, you said. About mile marker 47. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to markers. He pulled out his phone and showed me a news article from December 19th, 1987. A gas station attendant named Durrell Morrison had died in his station on Route 9 during a blizzard. Heart attack. They found him 3 days later, frozen at his counter. That station burned down in 1993, my dad said. There's nothing there now. I checked my wallet. The change Earl had given me 2 $1 bills. When I looked at them closely in daylight, I could see they were old, Series 1985. I still have those bills. I keep them in a box in my closet. Sometimes I think about Earl, still working his shift, helping travelers who need gas on snowy nights, not even knowing he died 30 years ago. I take Route 12 now when I drive to my parents' place. It's longer, but I don't care. This happened in February 2020, before the pandemic shut everything down. My girlfriend and I were doing a winter road trip through upstate New York. We had a list of small towns to visit, antique shopping, local diners, that kind of thing. We were using an actual paper map because half these towns didn't show up properly on GPS. That's how we found Ashfield, or rather, that's how Ashfield found us. It was late afternoon, that weird twilight time in winter, when it's not quite dark, but not really light either. We just left a town called Riverside and were heading toward another called Pemberton. According to our map, it was a straight shot on Route 20, about 30 miles. But then we saw the sign, Ashfield population 412, welcome. Is that on the map? Sarah asked. I checked, there was no Ashfield between Riverside and Pemberton. But the town was right there in front of us, real as anything. Main Street with shops, a church with a white steeple, houses with smoke coming from their chimneys. Maybe it's too small for the map, I said. Let's check it out. Might have some good antique stores. That was our first mistake. We drove down Main Street. Everything looked perfect, too perfect, like a postcard of small-town America. The storefronts were all decorated for winter, with wreaths and twinkling lights. The sidewalks were clear off snow. People walked past in winter coats, carrying shopping bags. But something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. We parked in front of a cafe called Millie's Place. Through the window, we could see people sitting at tables, drinking coffee, eating pie. Cute, Sarah said. Let's grab coffee and ask about antique stores. We went inside. The bell above the door chimed. Everyone stopped talking. Every single person in the cafe turned to look at us, not just glanced, turned their entire bodies to stare. Hi, I said. Just looking for some coffee. The waitress, her name tag said Millie, smiled. Of course, sit anywhere you'd like. The other customers slowly went back to their conversations. But I noticed they weren't really talking. Their mouths moved, but I couldn't hear distinct words. Just a low murmur that sounded the same from every table. We sat in a booth by the window. Millie brought us menus. So, how long has Ashfield been here? Sarah asked, trying to be friendly. We couldn't find it on our map. Millie's smile never wavered. Oh, we've been here forever. Long as anyone can remember. Do you have any antique stores? I asked. We have everything you need, Millie said. Everything. She walked away before we could ask what she meant. I looked around more carefully. The cafe was frozen in time, literally. The clock on the wall showed 4:47, beautied. Been watching it for 5 minutes, and the hands hadn't moved. The coffee being poured at the next table came out in slow motion, thick like syrup. Sarah, I whispered, look at the people. She did. Then she grabbed my hand under the table. None of them were blinking. They sat there, smiling, moving their mouths in that weird murmur, but not one person blinked. We need to leave, she said quietly. Check, please, I called out. Millie appeared instantly. Too instantly. Like she'd teleported, leaving so soon. But you haven't had your coffee yet. Actually, we just remembered we have to be somewhere, I said, standing up. Her smile widened. But you just got here. You can't leave yet. Nobody leaves Ashfield. The other customers stood up in perfect synchronization, all of them staring at us with those unblinking eyes. We ran for the door. Sarah grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't open. It's locked, she said, panic rising in her voice. Fire, exit. I pointed to a door at the back of the cafe. We bolted for it, pushing past Millie. She didn't try to stop us, just stood there with that awful smile, saying, "You'll be back." Everyone comes back to Ashfield. The fire exit opened. Thank God. We burst into an alley behind the cafe. It was darker now, fully night, though only 10 minutes had passed. We ran to our car. I fumbled with the keys, expecting the townspeople to come pouring out after us. But when he looked back, the cafe was empty, dark, like it had been abandoned for years. I started the car and drove, fast, out of town, back onto Route 20. I drove for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Then we saw the sign, Ashfield, population 412, welcome. No, Sarah whispered. No. We were back at the beginning of Main Street. I turned the car around and drove the other direction. Same result. No matter which way we went, we ended up back at Ashfield. It was 7:23 p.m. now. We'd been trying to leave for over an hour. What do we do? Sarah was crying. I pulled over and looked at our paper map again. In the twilight of the dome light, I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a faint outline where Ashfield should be. Like someone had erased it, but you could still see the impression. And there were words written in tiny, faded pencil. Don't stop. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Sarah's phone was the same. Okay, I said, forcing myself to stay calm. People have gotten out of here before. That's why the map has a warning. We just have to figure out how. We drove through the town again, looking for any other routes. Every side street circled back to Main Street. It was like a maze with no exit. That's when I saw the church. Something about it called to me. Let's try the church, I said. We parked and approached the white steepled building. The door was unlocked. Inside it was freezing cold, colder than outside. Our breath came out in thick clouds. The pews were full of people, all sitting perfectly still, all facing the altar. None of them turned to look at us. On the altar was an old leather-bound book. I walked down the aisle, my footsteps echoing. Sarah followed, gripping my arm. The book was open. The pages were handwritten, dated entries going back to 1891. I flipped through them. They were all the same. Today, 47 souls remain in Ashfield. Today, 89 souls remain in Ashfield. Today, 412 souls remain in Ashfield. The last entry was from yesterday. Today, 412 souls remain in Ashfield. Soon, 414. Sarah and I were the 2 new souls. We have to go, I said. Now. We ran back to the car. I had an idea, crazy, but it was all I had. Close your eyes, I told Sarah. What? Just do it. And don't open them, no matter what you hear. I closed my eyes too, put the car in drive, and pressed the gas pedal. Steering blind, I heard Sarah gasp. Heard her say, "Oh my God, don't look." I shouted, "Don't open your eyes." I don't know how long I drove blind. It felt like hours. I heard things, voices calling our names, something scraping along the side of the car, a sound like wind chimes made of bones. Then my tires hit gravel. Different gravel, rougher. The sound changed. "Can we look now?" Sarah asked. "Not yet." I drove for another 5 minutes, eyes squeezed shut, until my car beeped a lane departure warning. We drifted. We were on a real road again. "Now," I said. We opened our eyes. We were on Route 20, but the landscape was wrong. We'd somehow jumped ahead 60 miles. Pemberton was only 2 miles away, according to a road sign. We didn't stop until we hit that town. Pulled into a well-lit McDonald's parking lot and sat there shaking for 20 minutes. I looked at our paper map again. The faint outline of Ashfield was gone, completely erased. But in its place, someone had written in fresh pencil, 413. We'd escaped, but someone else hadn't. I threw that map away, but sometimes I still wonder about Ashfield. Is it still there, waiting for the next traveler to make the mistake of stopping? Are those 413 souls still sitting in that church, frozen in time? And the worst thought, how long until the number reaches 414? I inherited my grandmother's house in a small Wisconsin town called Copper Falls after she passed in January 2022. Population 891. ID spent summers there as a kid, but had UN visited in years. Going through her things was emotional. She'd lived in that house for 63 years. Every room was filled with memories. In the attic, I found boxes of old photographs. My grandmother was meticulous about documenting everything, every holiday, every visitor, every season. There were thousands of pictures. I was sorting through them, planning to make a memorial album, when I found the photograph that didn't belong. It was a Polaroid, older than the others, from sometime in the 1970s, based on the color quality. It showed my grandmother's living room, exactly as I remembered it. Same floral couch, same paintings on the wall, same grandfather clock in the corner. But there was a man sitting on the couch. I'd never seen him before. He was maybe 30 years old, wearing clothes from the 70s bell-bottoms and a patterned shirt. He wasn't smiling. He was staring directly at the camera with an expression I can only describe as desperate. I flipped the photo over. On the back, in my grandmother's handwriting, January 18th, 1974. "He's still here." I called my mom. "Do you know who this is?" I texted her the photo. She called me back immediately. "Where did you find that?" "In Grandma's attic." "Who is he?" Long pause. "Put that photograph back where you found it. Don't ask about it again." "Mom, what? I'm serious. Put it back and forget you saw it." She hung up. That should have been the end of it. But I was curious. I went online and found a Facebook group for Copper Falls history. I posted the photo with the caption, "Does anyone know who this man is? Found in my latter grandmother's belongings." I got 3 responses within an hour. All of them said the same thing: "Delete this photo, now." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, is this Rachel?" A woman's voice, elderly, shaking. "Yes, who you posted a photograph online." "The man on the couch." "How did you get my number?" "That doesn't matter. Listen to me very carefully. Destroy that photograph. Burn it. Don't look at it again. And for God's sake, don't keep it in the house overnight. I don't understand." "Who is he?" "His name was Michael Torrance. He disappeared in January 1974. They found his car on the side of Route 8, doors open, engine running. No sign of him. Just gone. So, what does that have to do with 2 weeks after he disappeared? He showed up in photographs. People around town started seeing him in the background of their pictures, at the grocery store, church, school events, always in the background, always staring at the camera with that same desperate expression. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. Your grandmother saw him too. In person, I mean. He appeared in her house one night. She called the police, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. But he left something behind. What, the couch? That floral couch. It wasn't hers before that night. It just appeared, along with him. And after that, he was in every photo taken in her living room. Every single one. I looked at the photograph again. Behind Michael Torrance, I could see part of the grandfather clock, the Timurid 317. What happened to him? I asked. Nobody knows. But people who keep his photograph. Bad things happen. Your grandmother locked hers in a box in the attic and never spoke about it. You should do the same. She hung up. I should have listened. I should have burned it right then. But I didn't. I put it back in the box and went to bed. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. The grandfather clock was chiming downstairs. 3 rings, then a long pause, then 17 more. I'd never heard it do that before. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Crept downstairs. The living room was dark except for the streetlight coming through the curtains. I could see the outline of furniture, including the floral couch. Someone was sitting on it. My blood turned to ice. It was him, Michael Torrance, wearing the same bell-bottoms and patterned shirt framed photograph, sitting in the exact same position. He turned his head slowly and looked at me. "Help me," he said. His voice sounded distant, like it was coming from far away. "Please, I've been trying to get back for 50 years. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I was driving home," he continued. January 18th, 1974. I stopped to help someone on the side of the road. They were standing next to a broken down car. But when I got close, I realized it wasn't a person. I don't know what teeth was. It looked like a person, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin. And it smiled at me, and I couldn't look away. "What happened?" I whispered. "I don't know. One moment I was on the road, and the next I was here. But not here. Like I'm trapped in a photograph of the world. I can see everything. I can move from picture to picture. But I can't touch anything. Can't leave. I'm not alive, but I'm not dead either. How do I help you?" He shook his head. "You can't. Nobody can. But you can save yourself. Burn the photograph. Don't let me follow you. Follow me. Once I'm in a photograph in your house, I can move to other photographs, to other places you go. I don't want to, but I can't control it. I'm trapped in a loop, appearing in pictures, scaring people, always trying to find a way out." The streetlight flickered. When it came back on, he was gone. I ran upstairs, grabbed the photograph from the attic box, and went straight to the backyard. I burned it in my grandmother's old metal trash can, watched it curl and blacken until there was nothing left but ash. I never saw Michael Torrance again. But sometimes, when I look at old photographs, I check the background carefully just in case. And I never stopped to help strangers on the side of the road at night. I was a substitute teacher in rural Maine, a town called Frost Point. Population around 600. This was February 2019. They called me at 6 a.m. asking if I could cover a third grade class at Frost Point Elementary. Their regular teacher was sick. I almost said no. The weather forecast was calling for heavy snow, but I needed the money. I arrived at 7:30 a.m. The school was small, just one floor, maybe 150 kids total. The parking lot was already filling up, with parents dropping off their children. Despite the darkening sky, the principal, Mrs. Hendricks, met me at the door. She looked stressed. "Thank God you're here. Mrs. Palmer's class is in room 14, down the hall. Lesson plans are on her desk. If Desno gets bad, we'll probably dismiss early." She hurried away before I could ask questions. Room 14 was at the end of a long hallway. The walls were decorated with student artworks, snowmen, winter trees, mittens, normal elementary school stuff. There were 18 students in the class, third graders, so about 8 or 9 years old. They were chatty and excited about the snow, which was already starting to fall heavily outside the windows. "Are we going to have a snow day?" a boy named Marcus asked. "Maybe," I said, "but we're here now, so let's do some learning first." The morning went normally. Reading, math, a short break for snacks, but around 10:30 a.m., the snow started coming down harder. The windows began to frost over from the inside, even though the heat was running. One of the girls, Lily, raised her hand. "Miss, why is it getting so dark?" She was right. The sky outside had gone from gray to almost black. It was only 10:30 in the morning, but it looked like dusk. My phone buzzed. Text from the principal. "Keep students calm. Shelter in place. Do not let them look out the windows." What? Why not? Another text. "Whatever you do, don't go outside." I looked at the students. They were getting nervous, picking up on my anxiety. "Okay, everyone," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Let's move away from the windows. We're going to have a story time in the back of the classroom, but I want to see the snow," Marcus complained. "Not right now. Come on, let's gather on the reading rug." I herded them to the back corner, away from the windows. As I turned, I glanced outside. Something was moving in the snow. Large shapes, dark against the white, coming closer to the school. I quickly closed the blinds. The lights flickered, once, twice, then went out completely. The kids screamed. In the darkness, I could hear them crying. "It's okay. It's okay." I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight. "Everyone, just stay where you are. The power will come back on." But I didn't believe that. Something was very wrong. I heard footsteps in the hallway, heavy boots, slow and deliberate, coming toward our classroom. The door handle rattled. "Mrs. Hendricks," I called out. "Is that you?" No answer. The handle rattled again, more violently this time. A girl named Sophie whispered, "Miss, I'm scared." "I know, honey, but we're safe in here." The door handle stopped rattling. For a moment, there was silence except for the wind howling outside. Then someone knocked 3 times. Slow, deliberate knocks. "Hello," I called. "Who's there?" A voice answered from the other side of the door. A child's voice. "Can I come in? I'm cold." I looked at my students. All 18 of them were accounted for, huddled together on the reading rug. "Who is that?" I asked. "Please let me in," the voice said. "I want to play with the other children." Marcus started to get up. "I'll let them in." "No." I grabbed his arm. Stay here. But they're cold, he said, confused. The knocking came again, louder, more insistent. Let me in. It's cold out here. The voice wasn't quite right anymore. Still a child's voice, but with something else underneath. Something golder, something wrong. The students huddled closer together. Some were crying now. My phone rang. The principal, are you in your classroom? She asked urgently. Yes, there's something outside our door. I know. Don't open it. Keep the students away from the windows and the door. We've called for help, but with storm, it might be a while. What is it? What's out there? They come every few years when there's a bad winter storm. Nobody knows what they are. They look like children in the snow, but they're not. They try to lure kids outside. If anyone goes out there, they don't come back. How long do we have to wait? Until the storm passes. It usually takes a few hours. The door shook. Not from knocking this time, but like something was throwing itself against it. The door won't hold, I said. It has to. Keep the children calm. Do not let them answer the door. Do not let them look outside. She hung up. For the next 3 hours, we sat in that dark classroom while the things outside tried to get in. Sometimes they knocked. Sometimes they scratched at the door. Sometimes they called to us in voices that sounded like parents, teachers, friends. Sophie, it's Mommy. Open the door. Sweetie, I'm here to pick you up. Sophie started to cry harder. That's my mommy's voice, she sobbed. It's not, I said firmly. Your mommy is safe at home. That's not her. At one point, I heard something trying the windows. I grabbed the students and moved them to the corner farthest from both the door and the windows. We sat in a tight group. My phone's dying flashlight, the only illumination. At 2:17 p.m., everything suddenly went quiet. The scratching stopped. The voices stopped. Even the wind died down. I waited 5 minutes, 10. Then my phone buzzed. Principal Hendricks. Storm passed. You're safe. Police are here to escort everyone out. When we finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. The lights were back on. Outside the windows, the sun was shining on fresh white snow. But there were marks in the snow around the school. Small handprints pressed against every window. And in the snow by the front door, dozens of footprints leading away into the woods. Child-sized footprints. Parents picked up their kids within the hour. None of them seemed surprised. They'd all lived through it before. Mrs. Palmer came back the next day. I never subbed at Frost Point Elementary again. Some schools don't pay now for what teachers have to deal with. And some things aren't in any lesson plan. I worked at a 24-hour diner just outside Bakersville, Ohio, from November 2020 to March 2021. Population maybe 700, plus the truck drivers passing through on Route 22. The overnight shift 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. was always quiet. Maybe 5 customers on a good night. On winter nights, like the one I'm about to tell you about, sometimes none. It was January 16, 2021, a Friday night going into Saturday morning. 20 degrees outside with a wind chill that made it feel like zero, the kind of cold that hurts your face. I was alone. The night cook had called in sick, so I was running both the counter and the kitchen. Management care. They figured if it was slow enough, I could handle it. By 2 a.m., I hadn't seen a single customer. I was reading a book at the counter when the door chimed. An old man shuffled in, hunched against the cold. He wore a heavy wool coat, a knit cap, and old-fashioned eat-round glasses. He looked like he'd stepped out of the 1940s. "Cold one tonight," he said, taking a seat at the counter. "Sure is. Coffee, please, and maybe some eggs." Scrambled, I poured his coffee and went to the kitchen to cook his eggs. Through the serving window, I watched him sit there, warming his hands on the coffee cup. Something about him made me uneasy. Maybe it was how still he sat, or how his glasses reflected the fluorescent lights in a way that hid his eyes. I brought him his eggs and toast. He ate slowly, methodically. "You work here every night?" he asked. "Most nights. That must get lonely." "Sometimes, but I don't mind the quiet." He nodded, took another bite. "I used to work nights too, long time ago. Before the war." "Which war?" "The second one. The big one." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I was a night watchman at the factory just outside town. Sat in a little booth all night, making my rounds every hour. Saw all kinds of things in that factory after dark." "What kind of things?" He looked up at me then. His glasses had slipped down his nose, and I could see his eyes. They were cloudy, almost white. Things that shouldn't have been there. Shadows that moved on their own. Machines that ran when they were turned off. And sounds. Oh, the sounds. Like someone working on the assembly line. But when I'd go check, nobody would be there. "Sounds creepy," I said, trying to keep my tone light. It was. But the worst part was the last night. January 16th, 1943. That's when I died. I froze. "What?" "Fire," he said calmly, still eating his eggs. "Started in the electrical room. Spread fast. I was making my rounds in the upper floor when the smoke got me. They found my body 3 days later." My heart was pounding. This was some kind of joke. Had to be. That's not funny." He looked at me again. This time I could see through his glasses. There was nothing behind them. Just empty sockets, dark and hollow. "I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to warn you." I backed toward the kitchen. "I think you should leave. It's January 16th, he continued. "Do you know what today is?" I checked my phone. He was right. January 16th. "I come back every year," he said, "to warn the night worker. Because something else comes tonight. Something that followed me out of that factory fire. It's been hunting night workers ever since, looking for souls to replace the ones it lost in the flames. This isn't real. You're not real." He stood up, pulled some coins from his pocket, and laid them on the counter. Old coins. I could see the dates. 1942. "Lock your doors," he said. "Don't let anyone in after I leave. No matter what they say. No matter who they look like." He walked to the door. As he opened it, letting in a blast of frigid air, he looked back. "Good luck tonight. You're going to need it." Then he was gone. I ran to the door and looked out. The parking lot was empty except for my car. No footprints in the snow. No sign anyone had been there. I locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the deadbolt. That's when I heard the knocking. I turned. Someone was at the window, pressing their face against the glass. A woman, maybe 40, wearing a fast food uniform. "Please," she called, her voice muffled. "My car broke down. I need to use your phone. The diner's closed." I shouted back, "But the sign says 24 hours. Please, I'm freezing." I almost unlocked the door. I had my hand on the deadbolt when I saw her reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser on the counter. She had no reflection. I could see her through the window, but in the reflection, there was nothing, just the empty parking lot. I backed away from the door. She smiled. "Come on now, don't be rude. Let me in." Her voice changed, became layered, like multiple people speaking at once. "Let me in." I ran to the back office and locked myself inside. I could hear her oar, it circling the building, tapping one every window, trying every door. Then the power went out. In the darkness, I heard something enter the diner. The door hadn't opened. I would have heard the chime, but something was inside, moving around. I could hear footsteps, breathing, a sound like crackling flames. I called 911. The dispatcher said she'd send someone, but the roads were bad. It might be 30 minutes. I didn't have 30 minutes. The office door handle began to turn. Slowly, testing. I braced myself against the door, pressing all my weight against it. Something pushed from the other side. Hard. The door bucked against my shoulder. "Found you," a voice hissed. The voice from the fire. Multiple voices screaming in agony. The door splintered. I could see fingers blackened, charred fingers reaching through the crack. That's when I remembered the old man's coins on the counter. I don't know why, but I ran from the office, dodging the thing in the doorway. I could feel heat radiating from it, smell burning flesh. I grabbed the coins. They were ice cold in my palm. The thing from the fire emerged fully from the office doorway. It looked like a person, but its skin was cherry black and red. Flames flickered in its empty eye sockets. I threw the coins at it. They hit its chest and burst into brilliant white light. The creature screamed a sound that shattered the coffee cups on the shelves and cracked the windows. Then it was gone, sucked back into whatever hell had spawned it. The power came back on. Police arrived 10 minutes later. They found me sitting on the floor behind the counter, holding a crucifix I'd found in the office. I told them someone had tried to break in. They looked around, but found no evidence. No broken door. No scorch marks. Nothing. I quit that night. Moved back home to Cleveland. I don't work overnight shifts anymore. I don't even like to be awake after midnight. And every January 16th, I light a candle for the night watchman who tried to save me. I hope he's found peace, but I doubt it. Some spirits are bound to their warnings, doomed to repeat them forever, hoping to save just one more soul from the fire. My brother and I helped our friend Dave move to Milton, Vermont in December 2017. Population 543. Dave had gotten a job as a park ranger and was renting a small house on the edge of town, backing up to state forest land. We loaded everything into a U-Haul on a Saturday morning. The plan was simple. 6-hour drive, unload, drive home, Sunday. In and out. We hit the road around 10 a.m. The weather was clear, cold, but manageable. Dave rode with his girlfriends, Sarah in her car. My brother Tom and I followed in the U-Haul. We stopped for lunch around 2 p.m. Checked the weather up. Winter storm was moving in faster than expected. We'd have to hustle to beat it. Maybe we should wait until tomorrow, Sarah suggested. Nah, we'll make it, Dave said. Forecast says the storm won't hit until after midnight. The forecast was wrong. By 5 p.m., we were still an hour from Milton, and snow was coming down hard. Visibility dropped to maybe 50 feet. Tom was driving, leaning forward, squinting through the windshield. "This is getting bad," he said. My phone rang. Dave, hey, the GPS is showing a shortcut. County Route 19 cuts through the forest and shaves off 30 minutes. We're gonna take it. Are you sure that's a good idea in this weather? It's either that or pull over and wait out the storm. And that could be hours. All right, we'll follow you. We turned onto Route 19. The road was narrow, winding through dense forest. No streetlights, no houses, just trees pressing in from both sides. We followed Sarah's taillights. 10 minutes in, they disappeared around a curve. Where'd they go? Tom asked. We came around the curve. Empty road ahead. No taillights. No tracks in the snow. What's coming down so hard that tracks vanished in seconds? Call them, Tom said. I tried. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Same thing. No signal, I said, checking my phone. No bars. We drove for another 5 minutes. No sign of Dave and Sarah. The forest seemed to close in tighter, branches scraping the top of the U-Haul. Then we saw it. A car pulled off to the side of the road, but not Sarah's car. This was older, maybe from the 1990s. The driver's door was open, engine still running, headlights cutting through the snow. Should we stop? I asked. Maybe they need help. Tom pulled over behind it. We got out, the cold hitting us like a punch. I approached the car carefully. Hello, anyone here? No answer. I looked inside. The keys were in the ignition. A purse was on the passenger seat, but no people. No footprints leading away from the car. This is weird, Tom said. We got back in the U-Haul and kept driving. Maybe they'd gone for help. Maybe they'd been picked up by somebody else. 2 minutes later, we saw another abandoned car. Then another. 5 cars total, all pulled off the road, all with their engines running and doors open. What the hell is happening? Tom's voice was shaking. My phone buzzed. Text from Dave. Turn around. I tried to call him. Still no signal. But the text had gotten through somehow. Another text. Don't go any farther. Turn around now. Tom, we need to. I can't. He was staring straight ahead, his face pale. I looked up. In the headlights, standing in the middle of the road, was a figure. It looked human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall. Its limbs bent at odd angles. And its face, I couldn't see details, but something about it made my brain hurt to look at it. Tom slammed on the brakes. The U-Haul fishtailed, and we ended up sideways across the narrow road. The figure didn't move, just stood there, illuminated by our headlights, swaying slightly. Back up, I said. Just back up slowly. Tom tried. The truck was stuck, wheels spinning in the snow. The figure started walking toward us. Each step was stilted, unnatural, like it was learning how to walk. Oh God, Tom whispered. Oh God, oh God. I grabbed my phone. Still no signal, but I had Dave's texts. I scrolled up, looking for anything useful. Then I saw it. A text from Dave I didn't remember seeing. It was just a string of numbers. 19.7 mile marker, I said. We need to get to mile marker 19.7. We're going to die before we get there. The figure was 20 feet away now, close enough that I could see it wasn't wearing clothes. Its skin was pale gray, mottled with black spots, and it had too many joints. Its arms bent in 3 places instead of 2. I don't remember making the decision. I just opened the door and jumped out. What are you doing? Tom screamed. I ran to the back of the U-Haul, grabbed the tow strap from the side panel, and looped it around the trailer hitch. The other end I tied to a tree on the side of the road. The figure was 10 feet away now. I could smell it, like old meat and wet earth. I dove back into the cab. Gun it. Reverse as hard as you can. Tom floored it. The wheels spun, caught, and the truck lurched backward. The strap went taut. The tree creaked. The strap snapped. But it was enough. The truck broke free and shot backward down the road. Tom spun the wheel, getting us facing the right direction, and we tore back the way we'd come. In the side mirror, I watched the figure get smaller and smaller. It didn't chase us, just stood there in the road, swaying. We drove until we saw a mile marker, 19.7. There was a small pull-off there, and parked in it was Sarah's car. Dave and Sarah were inside, windows fogged up, engine running. I've never been so happy to see anyone in my life. Tom pulled up next to them. Dave rolled down his window. "You saw it?" he asked. "Yeah. What was that thing?" "I don't know. We got this far, and then Sarah got a weird feeling, said we shouldn't go any farther. When we tried to call you, our phones died. Then we saw those abandoned cars ahead and knew we had to warn you. How did you send me texts if your phone was dead?" He checked his phone. "I didn't send you anything." I showed him the texts. He went pale. "That's not my number. Look at the last digit." He was right. The number was one digit off from Dave's real number. "Something was trying to help us," Sarah said. "Something that knew what was on that road. We never reported what we saw. Who would believe us? Instead, we took the long way around, added to our our drive, and got to Dave's new house around midnight. The next day, we looked up County Route 19. It had been closed since 1994 after a series of disappearances. 6 cars found abandoned over a 10-year period. No bodies ever recovered. The state put up barriers at both ends, but someone keeps taking them down. Dave moved back to Connecticut after 3 months. Said he couldn't handle the isolation. But I think it wasn't any else. I think he couldn't stop thinking about what was in those woods. What's still in those woods. Neither can I. This happened to my cousin Emma in February 2023. She was 12 years old, living in a small town called Whitewood in Montana. Population 487. Emma rode the school bus every day. Route 7, which picked up kids from the rural areas outside town. She was usually the last stop, which meant a long ride, almost an hour sitting alone at the back of the bus while it made its stops. She told me this story over Christmas. She made me promise not to tell her parents. They still don't know. It started on a Tuesday. Emma got on the bus at her usual stop at 3:47 p.m. The driver was a substitute, someone she'd never seen before. An older woman with silver hair and thick glasses. "All the way to the end, dear," the substitute said, smiling. Emma walked to the back and sat down. There were 8 other kids on the bus, all younger first and second graders, who got off at the first few stops. The bus pulled away from the school. Emma did her homework, half listening to the younger kids chattering. The first stop came at 3:52 p.m. 3 kids got off. The second stop, 3:57 p.m. 2 more kids. Emma glanced out the window. Something was wrong. They weren't on the usual route. She didn't recognize any of the houses they were passing. "Excuse me," Emma called to the driver. "I think we're going the wrong way." The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. She was still smiling. "Trust me, dear. I know the way." But they weren't. Emma pulled out her phone to check her location. No signal. That was weird. This Rawajali had coverage. Third stop, 4:02 p.m. 2 more kids off. Fourth stop, 4:07 p.m. The last of the young kids got off. Now Emma was alone, and they were definitely not on Route 7 anymore. The road had narrowed, winding through dense forest. Snow was piled high on both sides. I think you missed my stop," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. The driver didn't respond, just kept driving. Emma tried her phone again. Still no signal. She considered pulling the emergency cord, but hesitated. What ifs was overreacting? What if this was just a detour? The bus turned onto an even narrower road. The trees grew so close that branches scraped the windows. "Where are we going?" Emma asked, louder now. The driver finally spoke. "To your real stop." "What does that mean?" No answer. Emma looked out the window, trying to find any landmark she recognized. That's when she saw something that made her blood run cold. They were passing abandoned school buses. Dozens of them, parked among the trees. Old buses, rusted and covered in snow. Some had broken windows. Others were nearly buried in drifts. And in one of them, Emma saw a face in the window. A girl's face. Pale. Motionless. Emma's heart was racing. She stood up. "Stop the bus. I want to get off." "Not yet," the driver said. "We have one more stop." The bus slowed. Stopped. The door hissed open. Emma looked out. There was nothing there. Just a small clearing in the forest, surrounded by those abandoned buses. "This is your stop," the driver said. Her reflection in the rearview mirror was smiling, but her eyes were completely black. "No," Emma said. "This isn't my stop." "It is. All the children get off here eventually." Emma backed toward the rear emergency exit. "What do you want?" "I'm just a driver," the woman said. "I take children where they need to go. Where they're supposed to go. Where they've always been going." Emma grabbed the emergency exit handle and yanked. An alarm blared. She shoved the door open and jumped out into the snow. She fell hard, the wind knocked out of her. When she looked up, the bus was still there. The driver was standing in the doorway now, still smiling. "You can't run," she said. "There's no way out. This is the last stop." Emma ran anyway. Into the forest, through the deep snow. Behind her, she heard the bus door close, but not Thingjin starting. Not the bus driving away. Instead, she heard footsteps crunching through the snow. Following her, she ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out. She collapsed behind a fallen tree, gasping. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Emma peeked over the log. Nothing. Just forest and snow and those abandoned buses in the distance. Then she saw them, children, standing among the buses. Maybe 20 of them, different ages. All wearing winter clothes from different eras, from the 1960s, some more recent, all staring at her with empty eyes. "No," Emma whispered. "No, no." They started walking toward her, slow, synchronized, like they were all being controlled by the same thing. Emma pulled out her phone one more time. Still no signal. But in desperation, she opened her camera app and took a picture. The flash went off. The children stopped, turned their heads toward the light. Then they screamed, all of them at once. A horrible, inhuman sound that made Emma drop her phone and cover her ears. When she opened her eyes, they were gone. The children, the buses, all of it. She was alone in normal forest, and 50 feet away, she could see a road. Her road, the road her bus usually took. She ran to it, walked for 20 minutes in the snow, until a pickup truck stopped. An elderly farmer. "You okay, kid? You lost it?" "Yeah, I need to get home." "Whitewood, hop in. I'm heading that way." He drove her home. Her parents were frantic. It was after 6 p.m. The school had called. Emma's bus driver said she never got on the bus that afternoon. Emma told them she'd decided to walk home and got turned around in the woods. They believed her. But when Emma looked at the photos she'd taken on her phone, she could see them. All those children standing bent her in the frame. And in the very back, the substitute driver, watching with those black eyes. Emma deleted the photo. But sometimes, when she closes her eyes, she can still see them. Still hear that scream. She takes a different bus now. Route 3. And she never, ever sits in the back. I was dating a girl named Rachel in college. This was winter 2016. She invited me to her family's place in rural Nebraska for Christmas, a tiny town called Ashford, population 203. Her family had a farmhouse that had been in their family for 4 generations. Big property, lots of land, mostly fields, and a few outbuildings. The first night I was there, Rachel's dad gave me a tour, showed me the barn, the old tractor, the workshop. Then we got to the storm cellar. It was one of those old-fashioned ones, a concrete structure built into a small hill, with heavy wooden doors that opened upward, the kind you see in tornado country. "We don't really use this anymore," he said. "Built a new shelter closer to the house. But the old one's still down there if you need it." "Why would I need it in winter?" He gave me a strange look. "Just in case. But do me a favor. If you hear the doors opening at night, don't investigate. Just stay in the house." I laughed. "Is it haunted or something?" He didn't laugh back. "Just don't go down there at night, especially if the doors are open." That should have been my first warning. Everything was normal for the first 2 days. Rachel and I hung out, helped with cooking, did Christmas stuff. But on the third night, December 23rd, I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. I looked out the bedroom window. I had a clear view of the old storm cellar. The doors were open. Not just propped open, wide open, tilted back, flat against the ground. And there was a faint light coming from inside. A flickering orange glow, like a fire. I stood there, staring, remembering Rachel's dad's warning, but I was curious and stupid. I threw on clothes and snuck outside. It was freezing, maybe 15 degrees. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked toward the cellar. As I got closer, I could hear something. Voices, multiple voices, talking in low murmurs. I crept to the edge and looked down. The storm cellar was supposed to be just a single room with concrete walls and a dirt floor. But what I saw didn't make sense. It looked bigger. Much bigger. The small, concrete room had somehow expanded into a vast, underground space. The walls stretched back farther than they should, disappearing into darkness. And sitting around a fire in the middle were people. 7 or 8 of them, all wearing old-fashioned clothes like from the 1800s. Talking quietly, warming their hands over the flames. One of them looked up, directly at me. "Come down," he called. His voice echoed. "You look cold." I should have run, but something about his voice was compelling, like I had to obey. I climbed down the wooden ladder. The fire was warm. The people smiled at me, gesturing for me to join them. "Sit," a woman said. She wore a long dress and a bonnet. "Warm yourself." I sat. The fire felt good after the cold. "You're staying at the house?" the man asked. "Yeah, with Rachel's family." "Ah," he nodded. "The new people." "New. They've been here for generations." He smiled, but it was sad. "New to us. We've been here much longer." I looked around. The storm cellar walls seemed to pulse, like they were breathing. "How long?" I asked. "Since before the house. Since before the farm. Since before the town. We were here first. We've always been here." The woman leaned forward. In the firelight, her face looked wrong. Too angular. Her eyes were too large. "This land belongs to us," she said. "But we let you live here, as long as you remember the rules." "What rules?" "Don't come down here at night. Don't disturb us. And most importantly," she smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp, "don't try to leave once you've joined us." I stood up quickly. "I need to go." The man grabbed my wrist. His hand was ice cold. "But you just got here. Stay. Talk with us. Time moves us differently down here. You won't even miss it." I pulled away and backed toward the ladder. The other figures around the fire stood up. They were tall, too tall. Their shadows stretched wrong. "He's not ready," one of them said. "Not yet," another agreed. The first man released my wrist. "Go." Then, "Back to the warm house. Back to your girl. But remember, we're always here. Always have been. Always will be. And one day, you'll come back. Everyone comes back to Cellar eventually." I climbed the ladder so fast, I nearly fell. When I reached the top and looked back, the cellar was normal sized again. Just a small concrete room with a dirt floor. No fire, no people. But the ladder was warm, like someone had just climbed it before me. I ran back to the house, locked myself in Rachel's room, and didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I told Rachel what I saw. She went pale. "My dad warned you," she said. "What are they?" "We don't know. They've been here as long as anyone can remember. Maybe longer. The original settlers wrote about them in their journal, spirits that lived in the earth. The native tribes before them had legends too. Things that lived underground, that made bargains with people. Bargains. You can use the land, but you have to respect them. Don't go down there at night. Don't disturb them. And never ever accept their invitation to stay. What happens if you do?" She looked at me with serious eyes. "My great-uncle did, in 1952. They found him in the cellar 3 days later. He was alive, but he'd aged 40 years. And he kept saying he'd only been down there for an hour. We left on Christmas Eve. I never went back to that farmhouse. Rachel and I broke up a few months later. She said I'd changed after that night. Became paranoid. Couldn't sleep. She was right. I still have nightmares about that cellar. About the fire and the figures around it. About the man's cold grip on my wrist. And sometimes, when I'm falling asleep, I can hear their voices. Come back down. Come back. Everyone comes back eventually. I live in a city now. 3rd floor apartment. No basement. I'm never going underground again. My aunt gave me a snow globe for Christmas 2022. I was visiting her in Alpine Ridge, Wyoming. Population to 319. She was moving to Florida and getting rid of a lot of stuff. "This has been in our family for a long time," she said, wrapping it carefully. "I think you should have it." It was beautiful and antique, maybe from the 1920s. Inside was a perfect little winter town. Tiny houses with white roofs, a church with a steeple, even little people walking down Main Street. When you shook it, the snow whirled in a way that seemed almost too realistic. "It's gorgeous," I said. "It's from the town where your great-great-grandmother grew up, a little place called Ravenswood. It doesn't exist anymore. What happened to it?" She hesitated. "There was a blizzard in 1926, the worst winter storm in state history. The town got completely snowed, and by the time rescue crews arrived in spring, everyone was gone. They never found any bodies." I looked at the snow globe more closely. The tiny town looked peaceful, idyllic. "So this is like a memorial?" I asked. "Something like that." I took it home to my apartment in Denver, set it on my bookshelf. For the first few weeks, it was just a pretty decoration. Then I started noticing things. The tiny people inside the globe moved. Not when I was looking directly at it, but I'd glance away, and when I looked back, they'd be in different positions. One day, the little man would be near the church. The next day, he'd be in front of the general store. I convinced myself it was my imagination, tricks of light. Then one night in January, I woke up at 3 a.m. My apartment was freezing, even though the heat was on. I could see my breath. The snow globe was glowing. A soft blue light emanated from it, pulsing gently. And the snow inside was swirling, even though I hadn't touched it. I got out of bed and walked over to it. As I got closer, I could hear something. Faint sounds coming from inside death glass. Voices, screaming, and wind. The howl of a blizzard. I picked up the globe. It was ice cold. Through the glass, I watched the tiny people running through the town. They were trying to get to the church, fighting against the miniature storm inside. As I watched, the snow got worse. It buried the houses, covered the streets. The tiny people disappeared, one by one, under the white. Then everything went still. The light faded. The sound stopped. I set the globe down, my hands shaking. The next morning, I looked at it again. The town was buried. Only the top of the church steeple poked through snow. Now, all the little people were gone. I should have gotten rid of it then, but something made me keep it. Maybe morbid curiosity. Maybe mingles. A week later, the snow inside began to melt. Not all at once. Gradually, over several days, the houses emerged gone, the streets cleared, and the people came back. But they were different. I could see it, even at this tiny scale. They moved stiffly, mechanically, like puppets on strings. I had a horrible thought. What if this wasn't just a memorial? What if the people from Ravenswood were somehow trapped inside this snow globe? What if the blizzard never ended for them, and they were forced to relive it over and over? I took the globe to a paranormal researcher at the University of Denver. She examined it carefully. "Where did you say this came from?" she asked. I told her the story. She shook her head. "I've heard of these before. They called them winter traps. People made them in the early 1900s, believing they could contain harsh winters, keep the bad weather trapped in glass so the real town would be safe. Did it work? In a way, the towns that made them survive terrible winters. But something else survived too. The souls of people who died in those winters got trapped. The globes became prisons. How do I free them?" She looked at me seriously. "You don't. If you break the glass, whatever's inside the winter, the trapped souls, all of it comes out, and it brings a storm with it." I took the globe home, not knowing what to do. It sits on my shelf now, and every few weeks, the storm comes again. I watch those tiny people run and hide. Watch the snow bury their town. Watch them disappear. And I can't do anything about it. Sometimes I press my ear to the glass. I can hear them, calling for help, begging to be released. But I can't, because if I do, their winter becomes mine. And I don't think I'd survive it. My aunt died last month, natural causes, but in her will, she left a note for me. Just 3 sentences. I'm sorry I gave you the globe. I thought you could handle it. Whatever you do, don't break it in winter. It's January now, and every time I look at that snow globe, I see the tiny people staring back, their face pressed against the glass, watching me, waiting. My best friend Mike and I went ice fishing in northern Wisconsin in February 2024. There's a lake outside a town called Clearwater. Population maybe 400 in winter, triple that in summer. We'd done this trip every year since high school. Rent a cabin for the weekend, drill some holes in the ice, drink beer, catch fish, tell stories. Simple, peaceful. We got to the lake around noon on Saturday. The ice was thick easily 2 feet, plenty safe. There were a Feywater fishermen scattered across the lake, their shelters visible as small dark spots against the white expanse. We set up our shelter about 200 yards from shore, drilled our holes, baited our lines, and settled in. By 4 p.m., we'd caught a few perch. Nothing special, but enough for dinner. The sun was starting to set, painting the ice orange and pink. That's when we noticed the fisherman. He was about 50 yards away from us, sitting on a bucket next to a hole in the ice. No shelter, no gear we could see. Just him, sitting there, staring at his hole. That guy's gonna freeze, Mike said. It was 20 degrees and dropping fast, and this guy was wearing just a flannel shirt and jeans. No coat. Hey, I called out. You okay? He didn't respond. Didn't even turn his head. Maybe he's got earbuds in, Mike suggested. We went back to fishing, but something about that guy bothered me. He sat perfectly still. Didn't move a muscle. Didn't shiver despite the cold. 20 minutes later, I looked over at him again. He hadn't moved an inch. Still sitting in the exact same position. I'm gonna check on him, I said. Dude, leave him alone. Some people like to fish alone. He might need help. I walked across the ice toward him. As I got closer, I could see him more clearly. He was old, maybe 70. His face was weathered, skin pale, and his eyes, they were open but unfocused, staring at the hole in the ice without blinking. Sir, are you all right? He didn't respond. I reached out to touch his shoulder. He was frozen solid, not cold, frozen. His body was rigid, his skin like ice. He'd been dead for a while, maybe days. I jerked my hand back and stumbled backward. Mike came running over, saw the body. Holy shit, we need to call the cops. I pulled out my phone. No signal this far out on the lake. We'd have to go back to shore. Should we leave him? Mike asked. I looked around. The sun had set now. It was getting dark quickly, and something felt very wrong. Yeah, let's just go. We started walking back to our shelter to pack up. Behind us, I heard a sound. Creaking ice. I turned around. The frozen fisherman was standing up. That's impossible, Mike whispered. The dead man's head turned slowly toward us. His jaw opened, but no sound came out, just a puff of frost. Then he started walking toward us. Stiff, jerky movements, like a puppet. We ran. The ice beneath our feet groaned and cracked. Behind us, the frozen fisherman kept coming, his footsteps crunching. We reached our shelter and grabbed our stuff. I risked a glance back. There were more of them now. Other figures emerging from the darkness, all walking toward us with that same stiff gait. All frozen, all dead. "The shore," Mike shouted. "Run for the shore." We ran, abandoning most of our gear. The ice creaked louder with every step. I could hear the dead men behind us getting closer. My foot broke through the ice. I plunged into freezing water up to my knee. Mike grabbed me and pulled me out. "Keep going." We were 50 yards from shore when I heard the ice crack behind us. A loud, deep crack, like a gunshot. The frozen fishermen had stopped. They stood in a line, not crossing some invisible boundary. We reached the shore, scrambling up the snowy bank. When I looked back at the lake, the dead men were gone. Just empty ice, reflecting the moonlight. We drove straight to the police station, told them what we saw. They humored us, but said there had been no reports of missing persons. "Sometimes people see things on the ice at night," the officer said. "The cold plays tricks on your mind." "We saw bodies," Mike insisted. "Multiple bodies. We'll check it out in the morning." They did. Found nothing. No bodies. No evidence anyone else had been fishing near us. "Our shelter was going falling through the ice," they said. "But I know what I saw. And Mike knows too." We found out later that Clearwater Lake has a history. In 1947, 3 fishermen went out on the ice and never came back. They found the holes. They drilled their gear, everything. But no bodies. In 1963, 2 more fishermen disappeared. In 1989, another one. Every 20 years or so, someone goes missing on that lake. And locals whisper about fishermen who sit on ice long after they should have frozen to death, who wait there in the cold, patient and still, until new fishermen come along, waiting to bring them down into the dark water below. Mike and I haven't been ice fishing since. We sold all our gear. Now we fish from a boat in summer in shallow water where we can see the bottom. Because I never want to see those frozen fishermen again. Never want to see that moment when dead eyes turn toward you in the darkness. Never want to hear that creak of ice as something beneath it wakes up. And I never, ever want to know what's waiting under the frozen surface of Clearwater Lake. 12 stories from 12 winters. 12 small towns where something terrible happened in the cold and dark. Maybe you believe them, maybe you don't. But if you live in a small town, or if you're ever driving through 09, the middle of winter, remember this: there are things that only come out in the cold, things that hide in the snow and the darkness, things that wait for the longest nights of the year. Don't stop for strangers on lonely roads. Don't investigate open doors you know should be closed. Don't follow lights you can't explain. And if someone invites you somewhere in the middle of a winter storm, think very carefully before you say yes, because winter in a small town is different. The isolation breeds something. The darkness hides something. And the cold preserves something that should have been forgotten long ago. Stay safe out there. Keep your doors locked, your eyes open. And whatever you do, don't let the winter in, because once it gets inside, it never really leaves.